Chapter 40. Emily! Emily! Someone shook Emily over and over. She turned in her bed. The moonlight illuminated Alex's face standing over her. Captain, what are you doing here? Not so loud. Alex put a finger to his lips. Don't wake Danielle. She's been through a lot these past 3 months. Because you put her through it. Emily pulled the covers off of her. Get dressed in your Sub-Zero suit. Alex stood straight. We don't have much time. I'll meet you outside. Once he left, Emily got dressed in her cold weather gear, long john sweater and thermal pants. She hung her jacket and face mask over her arm and eased the door open so she wouldn't wake Danielle. Alex stood by the door dressed in his cold weather gear. Are we going outside? Alex headed to the elevators. I asked one of the senior members to prepare something to help with your flying. They rode the elevator all the way down to the ground floor. Emily gawked at the lobby. She hadn't been down here since she had gotten to the agency. The agency housed everything they needed in the complex, except shopping. Emily didn't have much money for shopping. Alex led her to the south entrance toward the starship hangars. At the door leading outside stood Thomas Card, captain of the number 14. Emily gaped at him. Alex, there you are. Thomas handed him a key card. It's gassed up and ready to go. Be careful. My pilot will go ballistic if anything happens to it. I appreciate this so much. Alex took the card. Appreciate nothing. You owe me. Thomas poked Alex's chest. Big. No problem. Alex donned his jacket. Let's go, Em. Thomas gave her a 2-fingered salute as he walked away. Emily watched him. That was Thomas Card. Emily jumped up on her tippy toes. He's captain of one of the top 10 teams. I know. Alex wrapped his scarf around his face. You know him? He tried to recruit me for his team when I first came here. Alex tucked the end of his scarf into the front of his jacket. Ready? Emily put on her face mask. She nodded. Alex covered his mouth with his scarf before opening the door. A blast of cold Arctic air slapped Emily in the face. Even with her cold weather clothes, the cold bit at her arms and legs. The two rushed to the hangars, slipping on ice and squinting in the wind. Alex stopped at the doors to the hangars. He swiped the card and punched in the code. The door swung open. He ducked in, holding the door for Emily. Wow! Emily stepped in. A large starship filled the hangar. It had the shape of a saucer with rounded points and landing gear which held the door far above their reach. It had been painted silver and red. Wow, wow, wow! She darted around it, studying its height, length, girth, and breadth. This is a TS-547 Eco-class ship. It's one of the most advanced in the agency's fleet. Did you get me access into the hangar so I could see it? Of course not. Alex held the card to the side of one of the ship's landing legs. A ramp descended from the door several feet above their heads. I got you access so you could ride in it. He headed up the ramp. Emily scrambled up the ramp after him. They stopped at an airlock. Again, Alex held the card up to the side of the ship. The airlock opened with a hiss. It led to a small room with 2 doors, one to the right and one to the left. Alex opened the one to the right. Emily stepped through after him. The ship's cockpit opened up before her. A relatively large viewing window spanned the area in front of the flight controls. 3 chairs sat in front of the console, the middle seat for the pilot, the one on the right for the co-pilot, if any, and the last one for the technical specialist. Another seat stood in the middle of the room, for the captain. Oh, wow! Emily rushed in. It's a cockpit. Or is it a bridge? I've heard it called both. I call it a flight deck. Alex sat in the pilot's seat. Strap yourself in, Em. He started pressing buttons. Emily sat in the co-pilot's seat. She strapped herself in. Airlock closing, Alex said. The door locked. Emily's ears popped. Verifying airlock seal. Check. Alex put the headset on. Space traffic control. This is a CSS Domini requesting permission for liftoff. Over. You're a pilot? Emily asked. Barely. Alex put his hands on the wheel. I know enough to get from point A to B, but I'm useless if something goes wrong. Impressive. Emily's eyes roved over Alex sitting in the pilot's chair. He sat with such presence. I've always wanted to... Just a second. Alex pressed the headset over his right ear. That would be flight plan number B5294 control. Over. Emily fell silent. A pilot needed to concentrate on what space flight control said. She could talk later. Affirmative, Alex said into the headset. Starting engines. The ship gave a gentle vibration, which hummed through Emily's body. Running initial checks. Alex flipped control switches and turned dials. Checks complete. We're all green, Control. He fell silent, listening to the chatter. Copy that, Control. Opening hangar roof. Emily looked up. The roof of the hangar split apart. Alex tilted the flight wheel toward his belly. The ship rose into the air. Emily leaned forward as much as she could to see outside. She bounced in her chair. Amazing. Simply amazing. We are clearing the roof, Control, Alex said into the headset. Heading towards Spacepad 23, over. He guided the ship to a cleared paved area with the number 23 painted on the floor. He eased the ship to the ground. Go ahead, Control. Alex listened to the headset. Copy that. Lift off in T-minus 30 seconds. Emily sat back in her chair. Lift off. In a real spaceship's flight deck. She tapped her toes onto the ground. 30 seconds couldn't pass fast enough for her. 5, 4, 3, 2. Alex pulled the flight control stick towards him. The ship vibrated in response. It rose into the air. Here we go. He flipped a switch. The ship shot off at an angle. Emily's head pressed against her seat. She kept her teeth clenched and her eyes on the view screen, watching the atmosphere whiz past her. Suddenly, the feel of acceleration stopped. She floated off her seat. Alex glided the ship to the planet's orbit. Initiating artificial gravity. Alex turned the dial slowly. Emily felt herself settle back into the chair. Well? Alex glanced at her. What did you think? That was amazing! The takeoff was a little rough, though. I'm not the best pilot. Alex kept his eyes on the flight controls. Emily, you've never flown in space before, have you? Not unless you caught the shuttle that took me from my colony to here. Emily bounced in her chair. She couldn't sit still. I was a passenger and stuck in the middle seat, so I couldn't see anything. How is it that you've never flown, but you passed the space pilot exam? Don't you have to fly a ship to do it? I took it on a simulator. I didn't think that was allowed. It's not usually, but Grenier, my colony, is a tiny place on one of Nitron's moons. Nitron? I'm not familiar with that planet. I'm not surprised. Emily gazed at the stars outside the window. It's a dwarf planet. Most of it was destroyed in the war between the Narsans and the Empire, but the colony remained intact. Of course, since we're so poor to begin with, everyone pretty much left us to ourselves after the ceasefire started. We can't afford spaceships for testing people. So the Silent Agency in our system arranged for aspiring pilots to take the test in a fancy simulator. It used to be a real ship, and it acts like a real ship. It's what I used to take the test. Now I understand, Alex chuckled to himself. It's so obvious. He motioned to the flight stick. Want a shot? Huh? Alex strapped himself on the pilot seat. Take the wheel. Really? Emily's eyes widened. Alex stood. He presented the seat to her. Emily unstrapped herself and scooted into the pilot's seat. She set her hands on the wheel and felt the power of the machine flow into her hands. Wow. Not like the simulators, huh? Not at all. See how it handles. Emily moved the wheel to the left. The ship jerked to the left. More responsive than I thought. She eased the wheel to the right. The ship responded in kind. She did it again. Excellent. Alex rested a hand on the back of her seat. Now give it a tumble. Emily turned the wheel. The ship turned over itself. I love this. Tajay was right about you. You are a wonderful pilot. Up until a few moments ago, I didn't think you had what it took. What changed your mind? The look in your eye. Alex smiled at her. The moment you sat in the pilot's seat, you got this look in your eye that said, this is where I belong. I've noticed that all great pilots have the same look. Emily gazed at her hands resting on the wheel. They did feel like they belong here. I finally figured out what Tajay sees in you. Why he was so insistent on getting you to join. Because I care about the safety of the team? Not quite. There's something more important. He said you can take in a lot of information at once and paint the big picture in a moment. I thought he was talking about mission specs, but there's more to it. Go ahead and put us in the re-entry position. It's about time we went back. Emily glided the ship to the correct point. I've been watching you train for a while now, and I've noticed this habit of yours. Alex sat in the co-pilot seat. Before you enter a simulator, you run around it once to examine it. You did the same thing when you saw this ship. I thought you were excitable, but you're mentally calculating the length, width, breadth, and mass of the ship, aren't you? Emily furrowed her brows. I don't think so. I just try to see how big it is and try to imagine how it would handle. Which is a simplified version of what I said. Alex leaned back in the chair. Your mind is amazing, Emily. You're able to, at a glance, figure out how the ship should handle. It's why you don't do well in simulators. You can estimate the size of the simulators based on what you see, but a simulator imitates a much larger ship with more mass. So what you expect and what happens is different. Emily, you're probably the most talented pilot in the agency. You think so? Look at you. You've never flown a ship before and you're handling this thing like a pro. Alex smiled at her. You're going to kick butt in the test next week. Don't worry about a thing. Emily beamed. Yes, sir. Now take us through the re-entry process. Land us back in the hangar. Emily studied Alex. He seemed completely at ease, not nervous at all about letting her take the wheel. She turned her attention to gliding the ship back towards the planet. Alex's confidence in her somehow instilled confidence in herself. Now she knew she could pass her test. No doubt about it now.